Kal Kadosh, Boker Or, Masechet Nedarim Daf Yud Amud Aleph, 18A1. Mordechai just beautifully said that we had a machloket we had the last Mishnah, which was that a neder can be chal on a neder and a shivua cannot be chal on another shivua. There was a machloket between Rav Huna and Shemuel. Yeah, this is Shabbat's daf. Yeah, there's a machloket between Rav Huna and Shemuel. According to Rav Huna, this is not a blanket statement en neder chal neder. It is only en neder chal neder if you say the exact same thing. That means if you said Hareni Nazir Yom, en neder chal neder according to Rav Huna. It is only when you add. So migu that you added on, so just like it's going to chal on the extra, it's going to chal on this again. And therefore, according to Rav Huna, it's only going to be, you said Hareni Nazir Yom, Hareni Nazir Machal. Comes Shemuel and he argues, and he says, no, it's always neder chal neder. Then we brought a bomba, right? The question against Rav Huna from a Mishnah. Why isn't it in the Mishnah itself? It should have already come and it should have differentiated that en neder chal neder when you add. If you don't add, you didn't. Kashya, we left with a question. Then we asked another question from the Mishnah itself. If you're telling me you're comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, so you said neder to neder and shivua to shivua. So therefore, just like shivua, right? It has to be that you added something on, because if not, then what's the chidush? So also neder v'neder is the same thing, even if it's going to be the same. Because if not, by shivua, it also does help. If a person comes to make a shivua, I'm not going to eat a chocolate croissant. Then he makes a shivua. I'm not going to eat what? The almond croissant. It's chal, both of them, but there's two different entities. So the same thing by neder, kavachomer, obviously. So if you're comparing the two, it has to be the neder and neder. And shivua is talking about when it's the same shivua, and therefore it's the same neder. Question against Rav Huna. And then again, we kept on trying to answer Rav Huna. The last one that we answered, or that we asked him is that if a person comes and he says that he wanted to make, he makes himself two nazirs. He says that any nazir yom, and then the next day he comes and he says, right, that he's going to be a nazir again. So so what happens is that usually we say that he has to do 60 days. Because remember, right, whenever you have nazirut, en nazirut pachom mishoshim yom.
Well, when did you say that twice?
Finished off. Right now, if a person came and he said Hareni Nazir Hayom Hareni Nazir Machar, so again we already said he had two different groups of 30. All of a sudden, he's at the end of the 30 days. He separates the korban and then he does Hatarat Nedarim on the first Nazirut. So says the Gemara, the second Nazirut is going to be fulfilled with the first one. So therefore, now he doesn't have to do anything. Why? Because he already did one Nazirut, and he did Hatarat Nedarim on the first Nazirut. So the second Nazirut is going to be Yotzei Chova with the first Nazirut. Says the Gemara, that's a question against Rav Huna. Tufta de Rav Huna. Why? Because according to Rav Huna, what about the extra day? At the end of the day, you still have one extra day. Because since the second one, he only said Haren Nazir Machar, which means that you need one extra day. What's going on? Answers the Gemara, and this is how we're starting today's daf, right? Which is, we just said Tufta de Rav Huna. Answers the Gemara, lo, le'olam Haren Nazir Yom Haren Machar, u'mayal talu levar ma'ayu yom. You're right. Really, Be'emet, he went and he said the two different things. Haren Nazir Yom, Haren Nazir Machar. So it's good according to Rav Huna. You asked, how could it be that if I did Hatarat Nedarim at the end of the 30 days, that the second one is going to be Tzol Chova and the first one? This is very simple. You know how? In that extra day, I still need one extra day. I still need that one extra day. So there's no question anymore. That extra day, because he said Haren Nazir Machar, so means the second one had one extra day that he had to do. So because of that extra day, you're right. When it says that the first one, he annulled it with Hatarat Nedarim. So the second one was going to be fulfilled in the first one, but he still needs one extra day. He did that extra day. Levar me'ahu yom yetera. That's the first answer. Second answer, inami. Right, we're on the top of Yudchet Amud Aleph. Inami. There's the third line. Kegon shekibel shte nezirut b'vat achat. He did it both at the exact same time. What does that mean? He went and he said Hareni Nazir shte pe'amim. He didn't say Hareni Nazir yom, Hareni Nazir yom. Because they say, or you say in the same time. The same time. Hareni Nazir shete pe'amim. One more time. If he says Hareni Nazir yom, that was the Mishnah, right, that we just mentioned before, and that was going to be the machloket between Rav Huna and Shemuel. But here he comes and he says Hareni Nazir shete pe'amim. When he says Hareni Nazir shete pe'amim, right, so therefore he comes and he says, in such a case, it's going to chal both of them in one shot. So therefore, even Rav Huna is going to be moded. You're obligated to do 2 Naziruts. He says, why? Because one of them is not before the other one. Because basically, since you're doing it at the exact same moment, they're both Chal. Beforehand, we thought, and we said, 1 second, En Neder, Chala Neder, what does that mean? If you already have a Neder, the next one cannot fall on the other one. We said in the Mishnah, Yesh Neder, Chala Neder. Rav Huna says there's a condition to that. Only if you add. However, here all of a sudden, if you said, Hadeni Nazir Shte Pamim, according to everybody, it's Chal. According to everybody. Why according to everybody? But since you did it exactly, there's no first and second. You said it at the same time. You have 2 Nazirut. You have to do 60 days. There's the Gemara. Mati, Rav Nuna comes and he asks the following question. When it says in the Torah, this is where? In? No. Very nice. Naso. Remember that Parashat of Nazir is going to be in Naso. It was a trick, but everyone fell for it, so it's good. It's good. Ish o isha ki afli lindor neder nazir le'azir la'Hashem. A man or a woman that he comes and he makes a neder to become a nazir. Do you know that somebody once wrote a book, right? And he came to Rabbi Kanievsky, and the entire book was written, right, about like 40 or 50 different proofs from Gemarot and everything. Can a woman become a nazira? Did you ever hear that? Can a woman become a nazira? So Rabbi Kanievsky looks at the book and he says, I don't understand. So the person says, look, I've got a proof from this Gemara and I've got a proof from here and I've got a proof from there. So Rabbi Kanievsky tells the person, can you just bring me a chumash? He brings him the chumash and he opens up to the pasuk and it says, Ish o isha ki afli lindor neder nazir. Katuv o isha. I don't understand you. That means, the guy is going, no, I've got a proof from a Gemara, I've got a proof from this, that a woman could become a Nazira. The Pasuk says, Ish or Isha, a man or a woman. What do you need a proof? You understand? Fine. So says the Gemara, Ish or Isha, ki afli lindor neder nazir l'Hashem. Mikan she'anezirut chal ala nezirut. From here we see that nezirut could be chal on another nezirut. Why? Because since the word lehazir la'Hashem is extra, so therefore we need it. Okay? So says the Gemara, Mikan she'anezirut chal nezirut. Right? Shiachol. Like this. Shiachol, I would have thought to say, we are in 1881.
In the middle or right in the front?
At the beginning. Shiachol, that I would have thought to say, right? We're a few lines down. Okay? So it says, I would have thought to say, Valodinu, it's a kavachomen. Uma shivua chamura, just like shivua, which is strict. Shivua is stricter than Nezirut. Then shivua chalal shivua, and one shivua is not chalal another shivua. Remember, according to everybody there in the Mishnah, we said en shivua chalal shivua. Nezirut kala, so Nezirut, which is more lenient than shivuot. Lo kol sheken shouldn't be or even more so that it should not be chalal Nezirut, right? So Tamulomar comes teach you the pasuk nazir lehazir. Since there's an extra word lehazir, because it just told you nazir. Nazir means he becomes a Nazirite. When it says lehazir, it's the extra. Why is it extra? That's why one Nezirut falls on another Nezirut. What's the case? Right? If you're going to tell me, right, the Amar that he says, if you're going to tell me that he says, that he's the Nazir today, and then he says he's going to become a Nazir tomorrow. Hakrabaya, do you need a pasuk? Right? For sure you're going to say, because since the second Nezirut added on an extra day, according to everybody, it's going to be Chal. You remember one more time, the machloka between Rav Huna and Shmuel is only if it didn't add. But if it did add and you added even one extra day, lechule alma, according to all opinions, it's chal. One nezirut is going to be chal, another nezirut, you're going to add it on. Elala, but rather the Amar, it says that any nazir yom and any nazir yom. Really, they're both said that I'm a nazir today, I'm a nazir today. The Ketani, so it's the same thing that he said. The Ketani, and we still learn nezirut chal nezirut. That nezirut is chal nezirut. So this is the proof against.
So you don't need to add it.
So who's that a proof again? Rav Huna, Chazak Baruch.
Second one with a niggin.
No. Here, what are we dealing with? The same answer as we answered before. You accepted it twice, 2 for 1. According to everybody, when you say Hareni Nazir shte pa'amim or pa'amayim, mazot omeret, what does that mean? 2 of them according to everybody. According to everybody. Nobody argues. Not Rav Huna, not everybody agrees. Why? You said it once. The entire concept of en nezirut, chal nezirut was, if you already have one, and you said it a second time, maybe you're just doing chazara. People like doing chazara, like, to make sure that you're doing it well and you're going to remember, right? But maybe you didn't want to accept upon yourself another nezirut, right? Exactly. You want to do kinyam Masechta, you want to do chazara, you want to, until you know it well. But here, you did it in one shot. Simultaneously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard.
Right? So that's what it is. Next, says the Gemara, we had a hanacha. You know what hanacha means? It's not a price. It's not a price. It's not a discount. Right? It's not Cyber Monday. Hanacha means that we had something placed in our minds because the Gemara said, Uma shivua chamura, that shivua is more chamur than nazir. The Gemara just said it, and nobody asked why. Because usually, what is nazir? What is nazir? A shivua or a neder? Neder. Chazak baruch. Yeah? So if neder, right? If a shivua is a neder, what's more chamur? Usually I would say nedarim are more chamurot than shivuot, but shivuot are more chamurot than nedarim. Each one has their stringencies and their leniencies. You remember, one was on the gabra, one was on the chefta, one is on the human being, one is on the item, but then there's other things as well. One has to be, whether it's going to be in the positive and negative or not, there's a lot of different halachot when we're talking about. But here though, he says, Umay chumra de shivua min neder. What exactly is the chumra of shivua more than a neder? So he says, if you're going to tell me as if it's going to be chal on something which is not tangible, which means neder has to be something which is tangible. Shivua does not have to be tangible. So for example, we said what you see, right? Or what you speak, right? That's not tangible. If you say it's your eyes are tangible for what you see. Your mouth is tangible for what you speak. You understand? But it's not tangible just what you see, right? Which means like this, a neder, if a person comes and he says a neder, remember the neder has to be that he prohibits himself something like an isur or a korban, which means this croissant is a sur to me. That's an isur. Korban, this croissant is like a korban to me. I'm not allowed to benefit from a korban, so I'm not allowed to have it. That's called the neder. Shivua is shivua, I don't want to eat the croissant. Yeah, nothing to do with the croissant. I don't want to eat the croissant. It's on me, right? So therefore, there's a difference between a shivua and a neder. But now the shivua can be on something which is also not tangible. Shivua that I'm not going to sleep. But that's not tangible. You can't feel that. But shivua, my eyes are, I could touch them. It's something tangible. So it says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me shum de chayla, because the shivua is more chamur, because it's going to be chal even on something which has no mamashut. Afilo davar shemo mamash. Right, even on something which is not tangible, neder nami chamur. What about the other way around? A neder is going to be chal and mitzvah kireshut. You remember there was going to be a difference between a neder and a shivua. A person can make a neder that he's not going to do a mitzvah, but he can make a shivua that he cannot do a mitzvah because we are already nishba'in. We already have a shivua from Har Sinai that we must fulfill the Torah. So therefore, we cannot make a shivua. I'm not going to put on tefillin. But if you make a neder that you don't want to put on tefillin because basically the tefillin is going to be asur to you, right? So that, no, by neder, yes, shivua not chal. One more time. Neder, it's going to be chal because you're not prohibiting it onto you. You are mushba min Sinai, but the tefillin.
So, but if he put the day after tefillin again,
he's over.
Even though,
he's over on the avera. Gemara. Therefore, if a person comes and he makes a neder, that means each one has a stringency. The shivua has a stringency that it's going to be chal, it's going to take into effect, even in something which is not tangible and not a neder. But the neder has a stringency that it's going to be chal, even on a mitzvah. Not like a shivua, which is not going to be chal on a mitzvah. Ela mishum dichtiv, but rather because it's written by a shivua, ki lo yinakeh Hashem et shemo lashav. What is that referring to? When do we read this? Ki lo yinakeh Hashem et Shemot, where in Shemot? Aseret Divrot. 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments says, Ki lo yinakeh Hashem et asher yisa et shemo lashav. What does that mean? Somebody that's nishba bishmo b'sheket. So you see from here that other averot, it's not the same. Here he's going to be lokeh, and then he's going to be nitkaper. But nishba l'sheket, even though he gets lashes, he still doesn't get an atonement.
Wow.
So you see from here that a shivua is so stringent. Yeah? So because of that, look what it is, that this is a chumrah, a stringency that a shivua has, that a neder doesn't have. That if a person makes a shivua and he goes against a shivua, lo yinakeh Hashem. He could get lashes and he still doesn't get an atonement. That we learn from the 10 commandments. That is Parashat Yitro. Next, says the Gemara. Let's see the next part of the Mishnah. The next part of the Mishnah said, Shivua shelo ochal. Right? Shivua shelo ochal. This is the 2 dots. Yeah? So says the Gemara, right? Ve'achal, and then he ate. And he's only chayav 1. Why? And shivua, chal shivua. One shivua does not take into effect on another shivua. 1 second.
Time. Why before in Nazir at the same time they accepted it? It could be done.
There's the Gemara. Amar Rava. Rava comes and he says, "In nishal al rishona, shniya chalala." However, though, if you do hatarat nedarim, nishal is hatarat nedarim. You're going to ask a chacham for the first one, so then the shniya is chal, which means here is something interesting. Did you realize just what happened? A person came and he was a chacham banana. He went and he said, right, shivua shelo ochal, shivua shelo ochal. Shivua, he's not going to eat it. He's not going to eat it. Yeah. No, he said it twice. Shivua, he's not going to eat it. Shivua, he's not going to eat it. What happens? He wants, and we just said it's not chal on one another. However, though he comes, right, and he comes and he does a tarat nedarim. What happens when he does a tarat nedarim? Or it's not a tarat nedarim, it's a tarat shivua, but whatever it is, right? He comes and he does a tarat on a shivua. Yes. So now what happens is in hatarat nedarim you say the shavua. In kal nidre you say it also. Right? Ushmueh. Kal nidre ushmueh. We say it also. There you do all of it. You're doing everything. You're doing everything. You're doing hatarat nedarim. All of the shavua you're doing. Yeah. So what happens is that when a person comes and he does the hatarat of the shivua, he goes to the rabbi and he's matir. So now the second one is chal. Meaning a person could think to himself, listen, I come and I did a shivua. I'm not going to eat. No, once. Well, one second, one more time. I come and I said, I'm not going to drink this. Okay, I'm not going to drink the orange juice. I come and I make another neder, I'm not going to drink the orange juice. Can I drink the orange juice? No. But how many shivuot do I have? One. Because the second one is not chal. What happens if I go to Rabbi Ploni, right? The Bedin with another 2 dayanim, and I come and I tell him, listen, I regret it. You know, you do a tarat of the shivua. So now what happens is, I do a tarat of shivua of the first shivua. Now all of a sudden the second one takes into effect. So don't think, even though it didn't chal, but says Rabbi, no, it's only shivuot, both shivuot. If you do one day, one shivuot, for sure the both chal. What? Rabbi, one more time, let me just read. Amar Rabbi, im nishal al rishona. If you did hatara of the shivua of the first shivua, shniya chal. So the second one is going to be chal, and therefore, if he went and he ate, he's going to be chayav malkut or korban, whichever one. So Rava is saying that even though the shniya is not chal when it came out of his mouth, right? It was only just not chal because there's something already there. But if I take that away, now it's chal. For example, I'll give you just let's say, for example, it's like a lien. Let's say, for example, he's got a lien, right, on my property. Now, he also has the lien on my property, but he comes first. So therefore, right now, he cannot do anything until he finishes up his thing. But his was everything. If he comes today and all of a sudden he tells me, you know what, Rabbi, I forgive you. So now I'm going to say that's it. Why? Because he doesn't have, no. Now he comes into play. Oh, okay, thank you. That's it. Everyone forgives. Thank you. But now what happens is the second guy comes into place. So the same thing. Right? The same thing.
I didn't
right?
come.
He comes and he says the same thing. Meaning, when you came and you made the shivua, it's not chal. Why is it not chal? Because there's already a shivua in place. But if I got rid of that shivua, the second shivua that I already uttered, it goes into effect. Now it goes into effect.
Considered as having
how does Rava know this? This is an incredible concept. How does Rava know this?
No.
Yeah. How does Rava? 1 second, please. Yeah. How does Rava know this? Okay. Midilok Tani. From the fact that we said, right, we didn't learn Eno ela achat. Why didn't we just say that it's only one? Why didn't we just say it's only one? Meaning, when we said, what was the terminology? Eno chal. No, one more time. What was the terminology? En shivua, chalam shivua. Why didn't you just say it's one shivua? The fact that you said en shivua, chalam shivua means that it was a shivua. but it cannot be chal. It cannot take into effect. It cannot go into effect. But the second one is the shivua, but just it can't go into effect. If you're going to tell me that the second one was not a shivua because it was in vain, so just say it was only one shivua, and that's it. The fact that you use the terminology in shivua, chal al shivua, means that each one was a shivua, but just the second one cannot go into effect because it's busy. No. There's something there. There's something blocking it. But the second I get rid of that, it goes into effect. That's how Rabbi knew it. So Rabbi comes and he says, "Midilo ktani eno ela achat, vektani eno chayav ela." Right? Rav chaudelela. So what happens? He says what happened was there was no makom, there was no place for it to be chal. There was no place for it to go into a place. What happened? So now when he asked Hatarat Shavuot on the first one, now there's room for it to take into effectiveness. Now it's chayla. Now it's going to be chal. Lishna charina. Remember that whenever the Gemara says lishna charina, it means it's a different version. Right? It's a different version. So lishna charina. Okay, lishna charina. Right? He comes and he says like this. Lishna charina, the first word on the line. Right in the Hebrew, right in the Gemara. Lishna charina chiyuvahu deleka hashivua ika. If you remember, even when we said that there's not going to be a shivua chalal shivua, or we compared it to any sur chalal sur. You remember? Yeah. We said that this doesn't mean that it's not an avera. It means that there's no punishment. What does that mean? If a person comes and he says, right? If you remember, I told you the famous joke I heard from Rav Asher Weiss. I went to Tini, right? Tini is in France, right by the Alps. And I remember we went there during the summer. We were there for vacation, and Rav Asher Weiss was in a kosher hotel, right? It was a kosher hotel. Yes, there's skiing in the Tin de Lac, right? There's up there in the mountains. There's skiing, right? Even then, in summertime, right? But I didn't. Yes, but I didn't go. Right? But it doesn't matter. But basically, what happened was is that over there, Rav Asher Weiss was giving shiurim, and he comes and he said a joke. He went and he said, "By the way, you guys should understand one thing. You know that there was only one heter that I found, right? There's one heter that I found, right? That there's no isur of smoking on Yom Tov. You know what the isur? No. There's only one heter that I found that there's no isur of smoking on Yom Tov. You know what the heter is? An isur chal isur. That's the only one that he found. So what does that mean? The concept of any isur chal isur means that it doesn't mean that there's not that there's two averot, but there could only be one punishment. Meaning, by us, right, in the secular world, you have counts for the same action. You've got one count of this, and one count of that, and one other count of this, and another count of that, and 20 counts for the same action. And therefore, you could have extra punishments, because each count adds on punishments. For us, there's only one punishment. You could have many averot, right? It could be considered different averot, but there's only one punishment. So when we say en averach, right, any sur chal isur, which means not one, it doesn't mean that there's no two averot. It's two averot, but there's only one punishment. So the same thing with en shivua chal shivua, it just means that there's only going to be, right? He's not going to be chayav the two korbanot or the two makoda, but they're both there. They're both there. So he comes and he says this: chiyuvahu deleka. There's no chiyuv, there's no obligation, meaning that there's no double makot or double korbanot. Hashivua, but there is a shivua. What is the halacha for regarding to lechde Rabba, like Rabba? The Amar Rabba, as Rabba says, nishal ala rishona alta lo shniya tachtea. Rabba says if you made hatarat shavuot on the first one, so then the second one is going to be chal. So lema me meseyale. So why don't we come and we're going to bring a proof? Imagine a person comes and he does two neziruts. And then afterwards he comes and he counts the first one, which means he did the 30 days, the first 30 days. Vifrish korban, and then he separated a korban for the 30 days. Then he shalalea, then he did hatarat, right, hatarat nedarim here, because this is the neder of nezirut. Alta lo shniya b'rishona. So this is a proof, right? What does that mean? Do you see from here? He was the second one and the first one. So answers the Gemara, that's not a proof. Why? Maybe he accepted upon himself twice, 2 for 1, as we always say, simultaneously. Which means he went and he said, the second that he said that, according to everybody, if he says that he's a Nazir double, 2 for 1, so according to everybody, it's going to be that he's going to be Achal, and it's going to be obligated in 60 days of Nazirut. Okay? Fine. Yudchet Amubet, 18b. Until here, everyone clear? Mishnah Yudchet Amubet. Mishnah on 18b. Stam Nedarim. Okay, so now we're talking about a person comes and he's saying something which could mean a double connotation, which means it could mean two different things, right? So Stam Nedarim, Okay, lachmir. Meaning, if you could say, and if you made a neder, and I could translate it to the stringency, or I could translate it to the leniency. Okay, so basically it could either be to isur or not to isur. And you did it stam, lachmir. We go lachmir, we go stringent. So I mean, you made a neder, and I could have understood it that you were actually prohibiting upon yourself something, or you could have translated it that maybe you're being lenient. We go with the stringent. Upirusham, however, though, right, when we're going to explain the neder, okay, there we go lenient. Okay, so that means one more time. If the neder is hal or not, exactly, the attachment or the intention later on, but we're going to, no, so one second. The first one was, is the neder hal or not hal? There we go stringent. That's attachment. But on the explanation of it, there we go lenient. Ketzad. So now what's the case? What's the case where you said something, you could translate it in two different ways. We are going to say that it's stringent, that the neder is hal, but lenient, that the explanation is going to be lenient. What's the case? Hare alai kebasar maliach. Imagine a person comes and he says, this croissant is going to be like, to me, like basar maliach, basar of korbanot, right? Or like yain nesech, right? Or b'shel shamayim. He comes and he says, av shel shamayim, right? In all these cases, okay, it says shlamim is put in brackets. It says shel shamayim. There's a whole thing exactly why do you have to actually change it or not. Okay, fine, whichever one it is. Nadar, right? So now, if right now it's going to be matpis the basar and the korbanot of Hashem or the yain or whatever it is, it's going to be asur. Okay? Im b'shel avodah kochavim nadar, but if he did it on of yain of avodah zara or of whatever it is, it's going to be mutar. Why? Because it's not going to be asur, right? Why? Because it's already on something asur. Remember that you cannot make a neder, which is something asur on you already. A neder is not chal. You cannot make a neder that this is going to be like me, like something else if it's already asur. It was already asur for something else. Remember we had this as well. Which means that if something's already asur, whether it's pig, whether it's I cannot exactly because any isur chal isur. So en neder chal neder, which means you cannot make that. The im stam. Now, if he just said kibasar maliach or yain nesech, now he didn't say which one was it. It's still asur because we're going to say that it meant to Hashem and not to avodah zarah. Meaning a person comes and he says it's like meat of a korban. He didn't explain what's korbanot to avodah zarah or korbanot to Hashem. We say stam asur. Why we go stringent? Yain. He didn't explain of yain nesech or no yain nesech. He just said like wine, right? So what's going to happen? It's going to be of what? It's going to be asur. Hare alai kacherem. If a person comes and he says this is going to be like me, like a cherem. Im kecherem shel shamayim asur. If it's going to be a cherem of Hashem, right? For example, it becomes a gdesh of bedek habayit. So, for example, he consecrated it to bedek habayit to the Bet HaMikdash, so it's going to be asur, right? Why? Because it's going to be chal. But if it's going to be on the cherem, which is going to be the kohanim, okay. So therefore, what happens is it's going to be mutar, right? That means why? Because it was matpis b'dvar mutar, which is something that is going to be permitted. The stam, it's going to be asur. So here, one more time, he went and he made this is to me like a cherem. Right now, 1 second. Which cherem? There's cherem of the bedek habayit, cherem of the Bet HaMikdash, and cherem of the kohanim. The cherem of the bedek habayit is always asur to me. Okay, the cherem of the kohanim, once it comes to the hands of the kohen, it's permitted to do anything you want with it. The cherem of we're not talking about truma or kodesh.
Cherem means what?
Cherem is like something consecrated.
Animal, like a
yeah, it could be anything. It could be property. It could be property.
Once he gets it, he can give me a bite.
Yes, once he gets it, this is not truma or kodesh or things like that. This is something, for example, a gift. I consecrated this telephone. This telephone was consecrated. So if I consecrate it to the Bet HaMikdash, it's always asur. But if I consecrate it to the Kohanim take it. Once it gets to the Kohen, he could do whatever he wants with it. I mean, that could also benefit from it. So therefore, one more time, if it's going to be the Bet HaMikdash, it's always asur. So the neder is not chal because anyway it was already asur, right? He says, but if it's going to be the Kohanim, it's going to be mutar. Why? Because it was matpis b'dvar mutar. Which means that since the Kohen could do whatever he wants with it afterwards, if I come and I made a neder, it should be like that. There's no isur. There's no provision. What happens if you did it stam? He said it's like a cherem. Now, I didn't explain which cherem. Is it the cherem of the Bet HaMikdash? Or, so very good. So you have to be strict. You have to be strict that it's going to be like the cherem of the shamayim, and therefore it's going to be asur. Okay? Very good. Hare alai k'ma'aser. What happens if he comes and he says, this is going to be like Maaser? In Kimasar Behema Nadar. So now if he went and it's going to be like Masar Behema, which is a Korban. Remember, the Masar Behema is the 10 animals come out, the 10th animal, you make a big red X, right? And then that's Korban, that's Maaser. So it's going to be Asur. Ve'im Shel Gorem, but if it's going to be Maaser Rishon, right? Which basically goes to the, who does the Maaser Rishon go to?
To the Kohen. To the
Levi. To the Levi. Right? So the Maaser Rishon goes to the Levi. It's going to be mutar. Why? Because it's not to the Dvar Nadur. Being stam, what happens if you did it stam? You didn't explain which Maaser Rishon. Was the Maaser Rishon to the, what we mentioned, to the Maaser Bema, or was it Maaser of the Goren? Because there's two Maasers. There's Maaser that you get from the granary. That's called Maaser Rishon. Maaser Rishon goes to the Levi. The Levi takes off Trumat Maaser, or Maaser Mina Maaser, and that goes to the Kohen. So therefore, the Levi takes 10%. He gives 10% of what he received, which is going to be 1 in 100, to the Kohen. That's called Maaser from the Maaser, or Trumat Maaser. So therefore, in all these cases, there's going to be a difference. Is it Maaser from the Goren, which is going to be permitted, or is it going to be Maaser Bema, which is prohibited? If you did it stam, you have to go stringent. Next, Arei like Truma. He comes and he says, this is going to be to me like Truma. Now there's two differences. There's Trumat Alishka, which we know that Trumat Alishka, which is money, which comes from the Shkalim and everything, so it's going to be Asur. Right? Why? Because it's something which is nadur. Ve'im shel goren, but if it's going to be truma of the goren, again of the granary, which is truma gdola, right? Truma gdola comes before maaser rishon, right? Before maaser rishon, the first thing that you have to take off from your things is truma gdola, right? Which is 150th, 124th, whatever it is, and then you give that to the kohen. So that does go straight to the kohen. Truma gdola. So it's going to be mutar. Why? Because this truma is not considered, right? The vara nadur or the vara asur. Stam, again, it's going to be asur. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. So in all these cases, you saw that there was a permitted way, prohibited way, but you didn't explain. You just said it's like Maaser. You didn't explain which Maaser. You said it's like Truma. You didn't explain which Truma. You just said it's like a Cherem or whatever. You didn't explain which Cherem. Basar Maliach. You didn't explain which one. Yain. You didn't. Meaning, I had two ways to go: stringent way, lenient way. If you did it stam, you did it without explaining. You always go stringent. That was the general rule. Chazak rule. Says the Gemara, says the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says, Stam Truma, if a person came and he said, Alelai ki Truma, Yehuda, it's going to be a sur. Because basically we always say that Anshe Yehuda, since they were so close, remember that there were three parts of Eretz Yisrael, right? There was Yehuda, Galil, and everybody then. So he says over here, since the people of Yehuda were so close to the Bet HaMikdash, so for sure they were always, when they say Stam Truma, it meant, right, obviously Trumat Alishka. But Galil, but in the Galil, right, in the Galilee, there it says, right, he says it's going to be permitted. Why? Because they don't know what, they're so far away, because of the distance of where they live, they're not talking about Trumat Alishka, they're talking about the Truma that we were talking about of the Goren, so therefore it's going to be permitted. So it means according to Yehuda, it depends on your location, depends what was your kavanah. Because since, if you're so close to it, so you're always talking about the Bet HaMikdash, if you're far away, so for obviously you're talking about a different Truma. Next, Stam Charamim, what about Stam Cherem? Remember, cherem is a person that comes and he says, I really like a cherem. Remember, the cherem was like a consecration, or like it's a, nowadays they use the cherem as like excommunication, which means that I'm not allowed to use something, right? So, for example, you put somebody in cherem. It's like nidui. What does that mean? You're not allowed to use it. So that's a cherem. So he comes and he says, I really like a cherem. Yehuda, it's going to be permitted. Why? Since there's so many kohanim in Yehuda, because remember that since they're living right beside Eretz Yisrael, beside Yerushalayim, so therefore the cherem stam is going to be with the Chermei Kohanim, and therefore it's going to be mutar. In Galil, it's going to be asur. She'en anshe Galil makrin Chermei Kohanim, because they don't know the Chermei Kohanim. So therefore, since they don't know Chermei Kohanim, it's a cherem of the Bet HaMikdash. It's a cherem of the Bet HaMikdash. It's going to be asur. Okay, so that means again, one more time, according to Shitat Rabbi Yehuda, you see that the location is going to dictate to us what it is. That means it's not stam anymore. According to him, depends where you live. According to where you live, that's what you're actually mentioning. Says the Gemara. The Gemara says Yudchet Amud Bet towards the bottom. Ve'atnan, asks the Gemara, we have a stira. There's a Mishnah in Tarot and says, Safek Nazirut la'akel. How can you tell me that Stam Nazirut is la'achmir and only the explanation is la'akel? Here it says, Mifurash in a Mishnah in Tarot, Safek Nazirut la'akel. Now, Nazirut is a form of a neder. So why do you go la'akel? You should always go straight, stringent, not lenient, right? Because you just said, Stam Nedarim is la'achmir. So answers the Gemara, Rabbi Zer says, Rabbi Zer, like a question. Ha Rabbi Eliezer, ha Rabbanan. This is Rabbi Eliezer, this is Rabbanan. The Tanya was learned in a Braita. Ha Magdish Chayato Behemto. A person comes and he's consecrating, right? He's being Magdish. Whether it's his Chaya or Behemah. Chaya is a wild animal, Behemah is a domesticated animal. Higdish et a koi, or he went and he consecrated a koi. Okay, remember that the koi is a safek, whether it's a Behemah or a Chaya. Because basically it came from the two of them together. We learned this already. I don't know how you say it in English. Some people say that the koi is a buffalo, right? That's what they say. But basically it's between the two, but we're not really sure what it is. Rabbi Eliezer says, Yeah, Rabbi Eliezer says.
So
So that's now the Gemara. Rabbi Eliezer says, Lo ekdish et hakoi, because since we have a safek, whether it's a chaya or a behema, a wild animal, a domesticated animal. So if you came and you said that you're consecrating all your animals, maybe it's not part of it. Now, if you did say your wild animals, maybe it's a behema. So because of that, we have a machloke between Rabbanan, which is Tanakam and Rabbi Eliezer, right? Is the person doing it even on a safek or not? So one more time, you came and you consecrated the wild animals. Maybe this koi is not a wild, maybe it's a domesticated animal. You consecrate all your domesticated animals. Maybe this koi is a wild animal. So therefore, is it chal on this koi or not? So it says the Gemara Mandamar, according to the Mandamar, mamono me'ayel l'sveika, that a person would put his money into a safek. So therefore, he's going to prohibit something, even though it's going to be a safek. So gufe nami me'ayel, so to his body, he would put into a safek. And therefore, according to the rabbis, that they argue on this Mishnah, safek nezirut lakel. So therefore, stam nedarim lachmid. That means this Mishnah that says stam nedarim lachmid goes according to the rabbis, because they say that just like you put your money into safek, you would put your body into safek, and therefore you would prohibit something onto your body. But according to the Mandama, which is the Eliezer, that you would never put your money into a safek unless it's 100% for sure, which means the koi is 100% for sure, so you wouldn't put it, so therefore it's going to be okay. So too, gufe, also your body, kol sheken de lo me'ayel l'sveika, you tet amud aleph on the top, 1981 on the top. Kol sheken, all the more so your body, you're not going to put into safek, and therefore since you're not going to put your body into safek nezirut lakel, and that was a Mishnah in.
What do you mean?
Because remember that the neder, right? Are you going to put it on your body that you're not going to come and you're not going to benefit from something? So would you put your body, not your money? The money was the koi, right? Now your body is that you're not going to benefit from it. So would you put your body, right? One more time. Yeah.